Previously, we added a Google font, and then we also set our font size. So let's add a little more style to our quotes here. So let's go back, and what we will do first, if we take a look, you'll notice that this second to last quote has dropped down, and that is because our main we had set to 500, I believe, on its width, which is right about here. Okay, now we set this H3 element longer, so it's basically breaking outside. But this text is being held by that 500 pixel width of the main element. So let's increase the width, and then we'll change our font weight, and we'll add some line height to get spacing. So we have font size. Let's now do font weight. And it should default to the 400. Let's go with 700. So we'll have a bold font weight. And then we'll add line height. And let's go with like 30 pixels. So we'll get a lot of space in between. And then we need to set the width. So I'm going to set the width to 700 pixels. And remember, there's a trick. As a trick, you can always add border and set the border to a pixel, solid, and a color of your choice. And then you'll see the border around your elements. And you'll have a really good idea of how the elements are being affected by other elements around them, or how they are affecting other elements. Okay, so you might want to experiment just with placing borders around your elements as you're styling them. Again, just as a visual clue or cue of what's going on and how things are happening or why they're happening. All right, so let's go ahead and save. So we have our font family. We've set a font size, font weight. We added a line height, so there should be extra space in between each of the quotes. And then we set a width, so hopefully we will not see that second to last quote dropping down. And let's go ahead and refresh, and let's take a look, and there we go. So now we have some more space. We don't have the second to the last quote dropping down, and we have a heavier font weight. Let's target this last, okay? Let's target this last quote specifically and make this one slightly different so it stands out. That might be my favorite quote, so I'm going to make this one stand out. So we'll go back to our code, and I'm going to add a structural element. And this is a generic structural element. We've used one elsewhere in this exercise, but let's add a span, and we will add a span to this last quote. Now I could use a div, but I think a span is going to work better here. We're just going to span this element. So span, and let's make sure we close our span like so. So we can use the span as a means to attach, in this case, a class. Now we could target the span, and we could target the span specifically in our div. Okay, so we could target the span by dot fave quotes space span, or we could give the span its own class name. And let's do that. Let's do class equals, and then in our quote mark, and our class will be, I've already done fave quotes. So if I were to do fave quote singular instead of plural, that's probably too close. That'd be way too easy to get confused later on. So what else can we say? How about my fave? Okay. And we could even do quote, but I'm just going to go with my fave. Keep it simple here. So I could have done a copy paste, but let's just do dot and my fave, like so. We'll add our curly braces. And what if we were to change the font weight? Well, we could. I'm not going to change. Let's just change the color. So we'll do color, and what would be the easiest way to do this? Let's just call out, because I don't have my, or actually let's go to our assets. So we'll take a look at our assets, and I'll have to scroll back up here, and we'll go to colors, and I don't know, I'll use this one here. Okay, so that was just, I clicked on it. You can see it gets copied to the clipboard. So let's close this down and color. And let's add our semicolon, and we will save. And let's go take a look. So let's update our page, scroll to the bottom, and now this last quote will be highlighted. And again, you could add as many properties as you want to make this quote stand out. We could change the font size. I mean, there's lots of things we can do, but I'll just change the font size. So font size, and we were going with 18. Let's go with 24 px, semicolon. We'll save, reload, and now our font for our last quote is much larger. So using a span element to target a specific, in this case, a specific quote or text element.